let's get to the playoffs in this series. And I think I'm sure from the writer's point of view, you love the fact that you've got clarity on who the team is playing and who's got home ice. You can kind of get working on really diving into this matchup. We know the Avalanche are going to be a favorite despite finishing below the Jets in the standings and being swept in the season series. But when you look to a potential, no longer potential, to an inevitable matchup in a best-of-7, Murat, what stands out between the two teams as to what could be difference-making parts of both clubs right now? And, maybe advantages for either team when it comes to the head-to-head matchup that'll be determined over 7.
Yeah, for me, I start with the best skater on the ice, and that's got to be Nathan MacKinnon. There are a few players in the world who can take over a game.
It might be Makar.
Maybe, yeah. I have what a delightful problem to have, right? Picking your best skater. But for me, I have Nathan MacKinnon's name circled. I think Winnipeg's handling of him is going to run through Adam Lowry as much as possible and Morrissey DeMello as much as possible as well. If you're the Colorado Avalanche and you've got this great weapon, right? I think your best play, knowing you if you're getting away from Lowry, you're getting Scheifele or someone else, is to run that power versus power matchup. Admit that Connor and Scheifele and Velarde might make you pay at 5-on-5 sometimes, but if you're looking at a line that has a little bit of less defensive acumen, that's the one. You want to go at them. Well, Colorado's tried to do that through 3 regular season games. Obviously, they only had home ice in 2 of them. Am I blanking already? Two of the 3. 2 of the 3. But that's what they're aiming for. So the bet is, can MacKinnon outscore Scheifele so substantially that any other advantages that Winnipeg has, aren't enough to make it up? And so far, the answer to that is no, which is shocking in a way because MacKinnon's that good. It says a lot of really good things about the best goaltender in the world, Connor Hellebuyck, who happens to be a Winnipeg Jet. It also speaks to Winnipeg's commitment to defending against a top player like that. That, for me, if Winnipeg ends up splitting the MacKinnon minutes between Lowry and Scheifele, and Scheifele's line goes toe-to-toe with MacKinnon's and doesn't get blown up, I think the rest of things will take care of themselves, because that will mean they're playing a really good 5-on-5 team game. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Winnipeg is a deep, deep team up front. And Colorado's made some upgrades there, but I think Winnipeg's depth is a little bit superior. And that's the one thing that I'm looking at. I know everybody's going to point to goaltending, and I'm happy to talk about that too. But I think that's the number one key swing thing in the series.
Well, and listen, I'm with you in that. And I think that, this late run by the Jets to get home ice, I've sort of been saying on the show, and listen, maybe this is just taking advantage of the situation, but from a Jets perspective, I think the home ice advantage means more in this series than it might be in other matchups. I mean, partly because of what you just said with when we've seen Jared Bednar. I mean, they're throwing 29 out when the 55 line is out there. That is what they want. Rick Bowness wants Adam Lowry. I think that's significant. To have 4 games, a potential 7th game, if it is, to have that last change is important. The other thing is the Avalanche were the best team on home ice in the National Hockey League this year, and were not particularly special on the road.
Yeah, exactly. Best team at home ice, and then so on the road. Imagine. And that, I mean, for so much of the season, and it's tough in an analysis of the Avalanche to guess who are they for real, right? Because for a while their secondary scoring was so bad. It was such a trouble spot for them. I mean, Ryan Johansson was not the guy, for example, and they tried a few different iterations of things to get scoring underneath that top line that excels and dominates, and they didn't necessarily have a solution for so long. Then trade deadline comes in. Casey Middlestat's a heck of a player, right? And he wasn't there for this full season. Brandon Duheim to add, Yakov Trenin to add in the bottom 6 as well. That changes things. That does improve that team, and it makes them more versatile and less dependent on making sure that MacKinnon exploits his minutes. And I think that that's one of the things that you see. I mean, we talk about the Winnipeg Jets home ice advantage in terms of fans and what have you, but if you're not a one-line team, but if you've got one line that's just supernova caliber, those matchups are going to matter so much compared to other teams. So I think Colorado is better than that now, but also I think that matchups matter for that team. Another thing to talk about too, if you're talking about those matchups, it's not just center versus center. It's going to be wingers versus wingers. And when you have Nathan MacKinnon attacking with that kind of speed, it creates a second wave opportunity. And we know Cale Makar is he the best in the world at being a second wave offensive player? Maybe he is. Quinn Hughes, great season too. I mean, there's Josh Morrissey in the conversation in maybe the 4 or 5 hole. Like, there are some second wave offensive opportunities that open up. Who's going to keep pace with that? So Morrissey and DeMello are going to have a tough job to do. Mark Scheifele's going to have a tough job to do in that situation. But what are Winnipeg's wingers capable of? Not just F1 back, but the second forward back, the third forward back, the players playing off the puck, who's going to get that weak side defenseman cruising down, looking for that second wave of opportunity. There are going to be so many intense moments within that matchup where it's not just centers and defensemen and then Connor Hellebuyck at the end of the day. There's going to be importance on Kyle Connor and Gabriel Velarde to weather that storm. And I think that's another reason why this last week or so of improved play, not perfect play, but really improved play from those guys, gives you a little bit more hope yet if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan.
Well, certainly the game on Saturday, I think, gave a lot. And listen, the conversations are very different in Denver right now. I mean, and I see some folks that have been, poking around listening to some of the Avalanche coverage. I mean, they had that, 8 or 9 game heater. Since then, they've won 3 of their last 9 games. They lost in spectacular fashion in a game that going in, everyone in the organization, players, coaches said this was the biggest game of the year. We're a great home team. We want home ice, and we know where that is. And to finish off with the matchups and goaltending, we know what Connor Hellebuyck brings to the table. We know how great Brossoit's been this year. Georgiev, to his credit, leads the league in wins with 38. But that goaltending tandem looked pretty darn spooked on the weekend, and that's not a good thing to be dealing with, I guess, as you get into Game 83.
100%. That's the X factor, we'll call it. I think Connor Hellebuyck is going to be one of the most fascinating stories of this series, because on paper he's the best goaltender of the 4 available. First of all, on paper he's the best goaltender in the world right now. Second of all, right? Like, if this guy doesn't win the Vezina Trophy, some people have voted wrong, is my opinion. And if he doesn't get Hart votes, some people have voted wrong. He's been that good. But he's such, reputation-wise, I think you watch his style, and it's so patient, it's so calm, it's angles, it's position, it's mental reads, the way that he reads the play and makes the correct bet on where that puck is going to go. When he's a highlight reel Connor Hellebuyck save is calmness and patience, and the puck hits him and you think, oh God, that must have been easy. Well, there's actually a brain moving quicker than the play that's read the play and made the right decisions about it. And then, of course, all the physical mechanics that go into it. And it adds up to the best goaltending results on the planet. But I think his reputation is hurt almost because he's less spectacular athletically than some other goaltenders. His reputation is also hurt by the fact that LB beat him in the playoffs last year. His reputation is hurt by a couple of puck handling gaffes going back as far as Vegas 2018, where it seemed like once a playoff round, there was going to be a giveaway that turned into a frightening goal against. But if you go through his level of performance, and like even last series against Vegas, you go through the pucks that actually went in, and you look at the deflections, you look at all the different things that happened to lead to LB having a superior save percentage. You're like, actually, Connor Hellebuyck played that moment really well. And yet I think he has some reputational things to overcome, even in this market that knows how good he's been. I don't know if we fully appreciate how great he's been. And to have that player with something to prove, be your X factor and be at the top of his game and be the best goaltender in the world this year, if a goalie decides this series, I mean, it's probably going to be him, right? And that's an advantage, Winnipeg, to not have to even worry about that.
No, you're right. You're right. And listen, I'm glad you brought up puck handling. I've been meaning to mention this on the show. I've had plenty of off-air conversations with friends and Jets fans about it. The turnaround in Connor Hellebuyck's puck handling game has not been mentioned enough, and I'll put my hand up for being guilty of that as someone that drives a lot of these conversations on this show. I think back to our pal Mitch in chat, who 2 years ago changed his YouTube name to Helly's Shock Collar. And we had the running joke that the coach would have a shock collar for Helly, and the minute he tried to go to play the puck, they'd zap him to come back in because they were so afraid of what's happened. I don't know whether he spent the entire offseason working on it, but I mean, I think fans will agree. There was a time when Helly left the net to play the puck, everyone was on pins and needles. It has been night and day. He has been so much better. And we talk about working on things to improve it, to improve your performance. That has been a part of his development into a guy that's winning another Vezina that I don't think we've talked about at all, to be honest. That I think is another big part of just a guy showing an example of doing everything he can to make himself the best he can be and help the team win games. But would you agree that it's night and day as to where it was a couple years ago even?
Yeah, I would say these last 2 years have been an enormous step forward in that regard. And it's one of those things too, like when players arrive amongst the best in the world and, their homework doesn't stop. The idea of getting even better doesn't stop. Like Josh Morrissey has this huge breakout 76-point season. He didn't just phone it in and be like, hey, there are no ways in which I can get better. Connor Hellebuyck is one of the most cerebral guys that you'll know. And he is pursuing things as well. I want to check my memory against this, and I wonder what the chat thinks. I wonder what you think. For me, a big part of it is just doing it less often. Like, I think he's having more success when he does leave his net and play the puck. I think that that's real. I also think that the frequency with which he tries to go out and make those plays has decreased. He's almost picking his spots a little bit better. But I don't know if that's true or just something I feel, because my memory can't point to any moments of tremendous chaos, or at least fewer of them of late than say 2 or 3 years ago. The other thing I'll say, like, the Winnipeg Jets for the last 2 seasons as a team have been better than before, than especially the year 3 seasons ago where they missed the playoffs. And, we all know, maybe we are this person, but we all know somebody in conversation where when there's like an awkward silence, they're the first to fill it. It's like, that makes you uncomfortable, so you do something. I think that there are people who, when nothing is being done to solve a problem, are people of action, and they want to go and do something as well. I think on some of those chaotic Winnipeg Jets teams, Connor Hellebuyck may have tried to take breakouts into his own hands a couple of times that would have been ill-advised, just because he's trying to be out there doing something, being a solution. And I see less of that. I don't know if I'm reaching too far.
No, I think there's something to be said for that. Hey, before we go, you mentioned Josh Morrissey. He had the breakout career year for some, according to some, last year. I know the points aren't in the 70s again this year, but I think if I had to say, I think he may have had a better season this year. Where are you at on just Josh Morrissey's season overall, compared to the ascension to being one of the top in the league last season?
Zero doubt in my mind. Josh Morrissey had a better season this year with fewer points than he did last season. Not even close.
Agreed.
Not even a question to me. And I look at the even strength power play split. Sure, the Jets power play struggled at certain times, and he's on it and he's a part of it and all that sort of stuff. But his ability to control a game at 5-on-5 offensively with that move he does at the offensive blue line, the reads that he makes, like, he knows exactly when his moments are and when they're not. And he knows if he's making that play at the offensive blue line where he's beating that forechecker and he's going to step into the space behind him and go on the attack, well, he pulls that off because he knows where everybody is on the ice. The reads he's making are even better this year than they were last year. His control of the puck defensively has improved as well. I'm going to say that his defensive metrics have improved from last year to this year at 5-on-5 as well. You're not looking at him as a poor man's Carlson, which is a disservice to him to say that, actually, defensively, where it's all offense, no defense. This guy has been, for this season, a force in both respects. I think offense is still his biggest strength, but he controls the game. And the subtlety to the decisions he makes based on score, based on feel, based on teammates, based on opposition, I think that he's taken his mental game to another level as well. And I think that he's this he's Winnipeg's best skater. And I think that I used to make that debate with Scheifele, with other players, depending on what was going on. I think that Josh Morrissey has been that good that it's not really a question to me anymore. And then credit to him for that.